All right, here's your 2025 bow buyer's guide with PJ Reilly from Lancaster Archery. Now, we talk about PJ's favorite bows from Bear, what he likes about them, what he doesn't like about them. But more so than that, way past that, we talk about what should you look for in a bow when you go to a shop and pick it up and shoot it. What should you look for? What is it about a bow that's going to make you like it or dislike it? We talk about what to look for in specs when a new bow is released and a bow comes out. You see the spec sheet. What kind of specs should drive you to want to try a bow or to not try a bow? We also talk about kind of a big problem that a lot of people have. They go to a shop and, a lot of shops don't have room for you to stretch it out and shoot that bow long distance. It doesn't even have a sight on it or stabilizers or anything. You're just shooting it at 6 feet to kind of feel the draw cycle, the shot itself, the vibration, the noise. And sometimes that feels great and you love a bow, but then you get it home and you just can't shoot it at all, out to distance. You get to 50 yards and you just can't shoot that bow. We talk about what might cause that and what you can look for in a bow when you're in the shop to know if that might be the case. But also how to eliminate that when you do get home. So if you do have a bow that you just can't shoot as well as you thought, it's not what you thought you were getting. What are some things you can do to alleviate those misses at long distance and get that bow to shoot good for you? Guys, it's a really informative episode. It's a fun episode as always with Mr. PJ. I hope you enjoy it. As always, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at ScentLock. But guys, let's dive in and talk about what you should look for in a new bow for the 2025 year.
With over 90 years of innovation, Bear Archery continues pushing toward the goal of founder Fred Bear, making archery accessible for all. Fred believed the history of the bow and arrow were the history of mankind, and everyone should immerse themselves in the outdoor experience. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast, where the mission is simple: to hunt, grow, and inspire others.
Guys, it is not often that a product comes around that is just a game changer. I introduce you to the Paper Tuner from papertuner.com. This is a game-changing paper tuner design that is designed from the ceiling down to help you tune your compound, your recurve, your longbows. Best news of all, it's going to take up zero floor space and it only costs $75. This is engineered so it's easy to use, very quick to set up and take down with magnetic quick disconnects. It takes you a couple seconds to hang it up, to shoot through your paper, and then take it back down and hang it back on the wall, taking up zero room in your garage, your shop, your basement, wherever you're tuning bows. There's no bulky equipment. It's easy to use. It's fast to use. It's going to cost you $75, and everything that you need to hang it and use it is going to be in one box. It took me about 5 minutes to hang this initially, and then it takes a couple seconds to put it up and take it down anytime I want to shoot through paper. Guys, if you do any kind of work on your bows, or if you just want to ensure that your bows are shooting as good as they possibly can, I would highly, highly encourage you to get a paper tuner from papertuner.com. It's the best design I have ever seen for a paper tuner. So I would highly encourage you, papertuner.com. Go pick one up. Very easy to set up, very easy to use, zero floor space, very quick, very effective. And one of the coolest parts, in my opinion, all around the frame of the paper tuner, it's got what you need to see to know how to move your rest or how to tune your bow in order to take out the tears that you are getting. Guys, go check out papertuner.com. It's a phenomenal design. It's going to change the way you paper tune your bows. Papertuner.com. Get yourself a paper tuner. All right, Mr. PJ Reilly, man, it's the most exciting time of the year. New bows.
It is. You got it.
All the new bows are dropping, and everybody's excited looking at specs and reviews and videos. And so I do want to, kind of run down your thoughts on the new lineup from Bear, at least the ones that you've played with. But then also,
Yep.
a lot of guys, they're going to be walking into shops. They're going to be picking up a lot of different bows, all the different brands and names. What should they even look for in a bow? Like what specs should different guys, find pleasure in, but then also when they actually shoot bows, what are they looking for as far as what bow is going to perform well? So before we get into all that, what was your favorite bear bow this year?
Ooh, so I was actually excited this year because we did something a little different. We took we had 3 of what I'll call budget bows, as in, there's the Persist 33, that's their flagship. Then anything that's like under $1,000, I'll call them budget. Obviously, budget means different things, but what we did was we had the Whitetail INT, the Legit Max, which I think is like $460. Mm-hmm. So that's legit budget bow. And then the Legend XR. All of those I think are under $800. But anyway, I was like, hey, can I do everything I do with the flagship bows? Can I set them up? Can I tune them? Can I get a bullet hole? Can I then go out and shoot them at distance? And so I went through that process with all 3 of those bows, and it was great. I did it. I did all of it.
Yeah.
The Legit Max, that's the least expensive one. So not surprisingly, that's the one I had to spend a lot of time on to get it to tune, but I got it to tune.
Yeah.
And then went outside and I was shooting them at 50 yards at a 3D deer target. I'm from Pennsylvania. The average whitetail shot is 20 yards. Mm-hmm. So I'm shooting at 50. Nobody's going to be probably taking a 50-yard shot, but I thought I want to see if I can do it anyway. And I mean, I was making consistent killing shots with all those bows. So it was just great to be able to go through all of that. Of the ones I shot, the Persist, I would say, was the most consistent. That's the flagship. But of those 3, the Whitetail INT was the nicest shooting, I would say.
Yeah.
That was how I felt about that. But that Legit Max, $400 and some. That's with the RTH kit on it. So I was using all of their accessories. I didn't add anything fancy. It was the Whisker Biscuit V, their 3-pin Trophy Ridge sight, the quiver, everything that came with it in the RTH package. That's what I used, and was able to do that Legit Max. I'd have no problem if that was a bow I had to take out hunting. Yep, I'm taking it.
Yeah, and that's what. Now I get it. I mean, I understand if the Legit Max isn't for you. However, you're mentioning price, but also the specs on that bow. Anybody in the world can shoot that bow. So
for sure.
I mean, I've had my kids shoot that bow. And so
definitely,
no matter where you're at in your archery journey, the Legit Max is an option. And one thing that I have heard massively since this launch. Now listen, and we don't need to get into our economy and the state our country is in right now, but everything is expensive. And everybody's struggling for money. It doesn't really matter what kind of tax bracket you're in at this point. Most people are now more considerate of the money they're spending. And that was a comment that I got so much, was that they're glad that people like Bear are making bows that you can actually afford. Because if you want to get into archery right now, I mean, again, with the state of our economy, it's really hard to go out and drop $1,200 for a bow and then deck it out, total of $2,000 just to get into the sport of archery. And so that was something that a lot of guys were commenting on of, for somebody who's looking to get into archery in today's economy, they're thankful for companies like Bear Archery. And the Legit.
I like to play golf, but I am not $1,000 club, $1,000 for a set of clubs.
Yeah.
I'm $200 at Dick's. That's good for me.
Yeah.
And so there are people who want to bow hunt. They don't want to pay $1,500. They just don't. $400. Yeah, I'm in. $400. Yeah, I'm in. So it is awesome to have that option because it's different things to different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, and it's not only I'm spending $400 to get into archery, it's I'm spending $400 knowing that if and when I do upgrade, if I do want to, move up the chain, I can give this bow to my teenager. I can give this bow to my kid. I can pass this bow down to my wife, and I can move up. It's not just going to be a bow that sits on a shelf after I do upgrade. And that's something that's so cool.
And it's less expensive,
Yep.
but it will do what you need it to do. Absolutely. That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Can it do what I need it to do? And it did.
And that's something.
All of them did.
It's so impressive that Bear Archery looked at the legit as a $400 bow and still thought to themselves, it's a bow that works. They didn't need to improve it at all, but they still wanted to improve that price point by giving it integrate and by cleaning it up a little bit, by making it, the specs just a little better. So they saw a $400 bow that they didn't have to touch. I mean, nobody was expecting them to increase the performance of that bow, but they want to make sure whether you're spending $400 or whether you're spending $1,200 on the Persist, that you're going to get a bow that is going to perform. And so the fact that they even looked at and improved a $400 bow is impressive to me.
There are some $700, $800, $900 bows that don't have the integrate rest mount, the Picatinny mount on the front there. So yeah, and a $400 bow, that's some high end features.
Yeah. And that's something that, my wife, she shot the legit, for a couple years and people were questioning the ability of the legit. And I'm like, listen, here's what I can tell you. Did my wife shoot a 200-inch deer? No. Did she shoot a 200-pound doe? Yes. And in Kansas, that's a big bodied doe. And for a lot of places, you're not going to shoot a buck that weighs that much. If you're down in Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, not Missouri, probably
Pennsylvania,
that's a heavy, big, mature buck. And I'm like, listen, it worked. Like, that's all I can tell you is, like you said, it took a little bit more time to tune. It took a little bit more work. It wasn't as tunable as the Persist. But again, that's kind of what you're getting with a higher level bow. However, if you're willing to put in the work, you can get that legit to shoot just as good as you need it to shoot. And I was at the Oklahoma Total Archery Challenge this last year, and I actually have a picture of it. There's a line of guys shooting, and they're all shooting at one of the the challenge shots at 70 yards. And there's a guy doing it with a legit. And I'm like, that proves it, right? I mean, he's hanging with guys. Yeah. And here's the deal, PJ. I don't know how you feel about this. Man, pretty much all of today's bows can outshoot my ability of shooting. I'm never going to outshoot a whitetail INT. I'm never going to outshoot that. And to your point, I believe that the best bow that Bear came out with this year, the most enjoyable to shoot, and I shoot it better than the Persist, is the whitetail INT. I love that bow. I love the grip of it. I love the way it feels. Yep. It's light. It's nice. It tunes so well. I mean, I love, and last year the Whitetail Max was my favorite bow. And so when I heard the words, like before I saw the bow and before I read the specs, when I saw Whitetail INT as coming out this year, I just thought, I hope it's a Max with integrate. That's all I want, is a Max with integrate.
Right.
Because if you look at last year's lineup, I said, listen, the best budget bows of the year are the Alaskan XT and the Whitetail Max. And for different reasons. The Whitetail Max had the EKO cam. It was an incredibly good bow to shoot, just a fun bow to go out and shoot. But the Alaskan XT was the first kind of budget mid-level bow that offered integrate. So if you want integrate in a budget bow, go with the Whitetail or the Alaskan. If you want a bow with the EKO cam, go with the Whitetail Max. Well, then the Whitetail INT came out, and you get a mid-level bow with the EKO cam and integrate. So to me, that's the best bow that Bear has come out with this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't disagree with that. It certainly is. It was nice to shoot, fun to work with. I like that bow a lot.
So, and here's kind of, and this might lead us into our next portion of conversation, but I got that question once was, well, the Persist and the Whitetail INT, they've got the same cam on it, and the Persist has a little more features. So what makes you like the INT better? So when shooting it, again, it's the same cam, same draw cycle, and for myself, I can just say I liked the way that bow drew and held on target better.
Mhm.
I think it was quieter. I think it had less vibration. But in those bows, what makes that difference? Like why is it that somebody would like the INT when it's got the same cam system but less features than the Persist?
Personal preference. That's, I've, worked in our shop, and I've certainly seen where we hand a, bow X to this guy. He shoots it, says, that's the best bow I ever shot. I take that bow, hand it to the guy standing right next to him, and he says, I hate that thing. It's personal preference. Something just agrees with you. You get that thing in your hand. And, the same thing I've heard people say, like, man, the vibration in that bow is crazy. And the next person says, man, there's no vibration in that bow. It's all, you can't quantify the personal experience that when you pick it up and you shoot it, it's what feels right to you. And there is no quantifying that. It's just something you have to experience. And, you should go with it. Whatever feels right for you, man, if that's what's going to give you the confidence, do it.
So I've also been in a predicament where a bow feels great. Like you're in the shop, and here's the unique situation that you're in is when you're testing a bow, you can walk out to 50 and see how you shoot it.
Yeah.
Most guys are shooting it in a shop. It's not set up.
Yep.
They don't even, they're just holding it on the target and seeing how the
Yes.
shot feels.
Yep.
And I've been in a predicament where a bow feels incredible. I mean, you just think this is the dream bow. And then you get home and you just can't, it doesn't hold on target. You can't shoot it well.
No.
You're inconsistent with it. So how can the guy kind of decipher that in a shop where they can't, walk out to 60 and spend a few hours with it?
I don't know how you can do that. And I hear you, and I feel bad about that. In our shop, we have at least 20 yards, but I know a lot of shops don't, and that a lot of bows are sold shooting at 6 feet with no sight, nothing on it. And when you take it out and you're going to hunt with it, who's going to hunt with it in that setup? Nobody. And I don't know what, hopefully there you have a shop that you can work with that would let you bring it back. I don't know. Because that's real, that the bow can feel great. And then when you go to shoot it at distance, it just falls apart. And our reviews, our bow reviews have started to include that element of shooting at distance just for that reason.
So what would cause that? I mean, if a guy really likes the draw cycle and likes the shot, what would cause that breakdown at distance for that person?
So you don't know what you're doing with your hand at 6 feet. There could be something in the grip, the grip feels comfortable to you, but when you start aiming, it's actually not right. And you're not going to know that. There could be things where the bow is, maybe it's heavier than you realize. You're shooting it at 6 feet. Do I even know what the weight of the bow is? All I'm doing is drawing back and shooting it. Once you put accessories on it, is it heavy? Is it not heavy enough? I think you don't know until you're aiming. And then when you're aiming, all of a sudden your pin float. It could be the back wall. Maybe the back wall isn't what you thought it was shooting it indoors. And then when you start aiming, it's, I'm actually creeping a little bit off of it. To me, I think archery is completely different once you start aiming. When you have to aim, that's totally different from when you're just drawn back and pulling the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, I appreciate, going back to my thoughts on bear, I appreciate that they come with different grips. Because there have been grips on a bow, the bow that comes on the bear that I'm just like, this is garbage. I hate everything about this grip. And then you put the flat plastic on and it's like, oh, that's it, or then you take it off completely and shoot off the metal and it's like, that's it, but you get different options, you get different feels. and you can figure out, where does my hand place the pressure the best and what grip am I shooting the best. But that's something that I've had that question a lot because, like you said, most shops, they don't even have sights on them, much less a peep sight. I mean, you literally
Right.
just get to shoot it. And I think to myself, you see all these guys walking in and you're like, yeah, that bow shoots great. I love that bow. And I can think of specific bows in my past. Well, I don't care to name it. The Nitram 30. I remember when that bow came out, the Hoyt Nitram. I shot that bow in the shop and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a dream. And I couldn't hit anything with it past 50. I hated the bow. I sold it after like a month. Hated it. Nothing against the Nitram. A lot of people like that bow. It's a great bow.
Yeah.
But for me, like we're
I
talking
like
about
the 34.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But for me, you
Nitram
get past
34.
that distance and it's just like, this is not, it feels good still,
Yeah.
but I can't shoot it. And I remember even a guy saying to me, like, when I was trying to sight it in, he's like, dude, you suck with this bow. And I'm like, I know. Like, and I'm like, thanks for telling me, harshly, but, yeah. And that's something that I've always wondered, how can guys get a better feel for how is it going to hold on target? How am I going to shoot it, without being able to really stretch it out?
Yeah. I don't know how you do that. Like I said, I think in our shop, I know you can shoot it at 20 yards, so you can get some sense. But like I said, those shops I know of, I'm thinking of two in particular where they just don't have the space. You're shooting literally 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so at that point, what's the point in putting a sight on it?
Right.
That's irrelevant. All you're doing is getting the feel. And that's not the best way to buy a bow. How you get around that in some places, I don't know. Because, we have these pro shop only Persist 33. It may be many, many hours to a shop where you could do such shooting. And whereas you have one right down the street and you can, just go in there and shoot it at 6 feet. I don't know how you recreate that.
Right. So here's another question for you on the backside of that. They get it home. They can't shoot it. It's not shooting well. What can those people do to try to get that bow to shoot better for them? I mean, is there anything to do?
So I would say, I would think a lot of the issue, or a major issue, may be the draw weight. I would say first thing I would think of is cut the weight down, just to make it easier to draw. Because there's nothing worse than if it's high poundage and you're frustrated. High poundage and frustration don't go well together. Your misses are just going to get worse. So if you can at least get the poundage down and then, start focusing on certain things. A lot of times it is the form. I certainly see it at the shop. Everybody wants to do the death grip, and that's going to cause you problems at distance, 100%. So it could be just that your form isn't ideal. And so you can, cut that poundage down, start working on your form, watch some YouTube videos about what proper form is, and then start practicing that up close. So possibly you can then work backwards that way and find out that, okay, this bow does shoot well. I needed to work on me. Because I can tell you I see a lot of people come in, and the problems that I see are more form related than bow related. So it may be that, this bow feels great, but you can't shoot it at distance, but it's not the bow's fault.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where the handle on this bow just looks like something you should grab like that. And that's just not good.
And there are things about bows that, and exaggerate my flaws, if you will. Some bows are
sure.
going to exaggerate my flaws differently. I'll tell you this, and this is on the flip side. This is on recurves, but when I started shooting bear recurves, something about the way they form their grips just exaggerated my flaws. And I had to really learn, how does this bow like to be gripped? And
yeah.
there are times where, if I get a new bow, I just have to spend some time learning, how does this bow like my hand pressure? Does it like a low
Sure.
wrist, a high wrist? What makes this bow shoot better? And, you can do those sort of things in a shop at close distances, in my opinion. I mean, if you're shooting bear shafts through paper, you can tell pretty quickly if a bow hates your hand position or not.
Yes.
And so those are some things that you just have to consider. Okay, maybe this bow just doesn't like the hand pressure I'm putting on it, so let's try something different. And there have been times where you spend time doing that, and then I shoot a bow better than I ever have. But I have to remember, every time I go to grip this bow, it likes a low wrist, or it likes, a little bit different of a grip, or whatever. So
one of the, I think I can't remember if it was the Legit Max, one of the 3 budgets, I had to really give heel pressure, and it took me a while to figure that. I could not get a paper tear until I changed the pressure on my hand. Boom, bullet hole.
Interesting.
That's just the way that bow liked me to hold it.
Interesting. Guys, when it comes to hunting and being outdoors, I believe there's one product that I use more than anything. That's not my bow. That's not my boots. It's not my anything else other than a binocular harness. If I am outside doing anything outdoors, I've got a binocular harness on. Whether I'm shooting, whether I'm hanging tree stands, whether I'm out hiking, it doesn't matter. If I'm outdoors doing just about anything, I've always got my binocular harness. Alaskan Guide Creations does it, and does it very, very well. I've been using these now for about 8 years, and I absolutely love them. The new system with all the magnets are really good, really accessible, very customizable. Guys, if you're in the market for a new binocular harness, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to check out Alaskan Guide Creations, because they are phenomenal. Now, and before we get into specific specs, one question that I get so much, and it's a hard thing to answer, when somebody says, well, what is the real difference between a $1,200 bow and an $800 bow, or a $600 bow? What are the real differences? And I'm like, well, I mean, material, quality of build, some features. So really, what is somebody looking at? Because again, if we look at the Whitetail INT and the Persist, same cam system, but $400, $500 difference. So what is somebody really looking at, and what are they really getting when they do invest more?
So I don't know this, but my first guess would be, feel pretty confident the Persist has a machined riser. The Whitetail INT may be forged or cast. The construction of it is different, to where you may not have the same rigidity in it that you're going to get from a machined piece of aluminum like the Persist 33. And then that rigidity, if it's flexing at the shot, at the draw, that's going to, cause some groups to open up, things like that. I know the string quality, strings and cables. How is that working? I don't remember the cable arm on the Whitetail INT, but it's not what's on the Persist 33.
It's like the roller. It's like the roller. It's on a slide, but it's got the roller on it too.
Okay. Yeah. So this Persist 33 has a little bit more articulating. You come to full draw, it gives the cables flex in a little bit. So easing some of that side load on the cams, all things like that. And then, as you said, and I believe thinner limbs, thinner limb pocket. So the Persist is going to be wider, which is more stable at the limb pockets and in the limbs. Longer limbs, if I'm remembering correctly, potentially on the Whitetail INT. So there's going to be more flex. Again, Persist is going to be just more compact, more stable, more rigid, all things that are good, conducive to accurate archery.
Now, and I get that question a lot from the guy who's like, dude, I've always shot a $600 bow and it's always shot really well. And to that guy, great. Like, you don't have to just
Perfect.
go spend more just because it's more. Now, I will say, I mean, you can go in and still shoot other bows and go, man, I really like the way that feels more than the bow I've been shooting. But don't think to yourself.
To that end, Christopher Perkins, one of the best shooters in the world, came down here to our shop, took a budget bow off the wall, and then he went around and proceeded to outshoot everybody. It's the archer. A lot of times it's not the bow, it's the archer. He's a great shooter. He can shoot any bow great. So that guy shooting the $600 bow, well, that's what he's used to. Yeah, he's probably a killer with that thing.
Yeah.
Good. Do it.
I've got a buddy, and if he's listening, he's going to know. I'm not making fun of him because I respect him as a hunter, but he shot up until this year, and the only reason I made him upgrade, I actually bought a bow, and I'm like, hey, you owe me this much money because you need a new bow. But he was shooting an old PSE Stinger, and this bow was beyond bad. I mean, the pins, none of the pins, all the pins were stripped out. So if he needed to resight, he just bent the pins to resight it. But the dude killed giants with this bow. I mean, mega giants. And it had always worked for him. The only reason I made him switch is because we had booked an elk hunt together. And I'm like, you're not taking that thing. There's a big difference in having that thing, in a tree stand and banging it around the mountain for a week. And so we ended up getting him a new bow. But there are those guys that just what works for you. And that's great. And I will say there is a lot of truth to guys. You talk to some of the best hunters in the world. They don't want a new bow every year. They don't want to get a new bow every year. They want to learn their equipment and just get super efficient with that bow, that setup, that sight, those arrows. They want to know that equipment in and out. And that's something that's hard to do when you switch bows every year. And I think back to a friend of mine, his name's Frank Noska. By every form of the imagination, I'm going to say he's the best hunter that's currently alive. He's I think he's only 2 animals away from completing the Super Slam for the 3rd time. He's got like 200 something animals in Pope and Young, just a phenomenal bow hunter. And I'm like, dude, how do you do it? Like not even the hunting, like just how do you even, and he's like, well, I shoot an old 2008 bow that always has worked. So why change it? And
why change it?
And he's not just sitting in a tree stand. I mean, he's going in the back countries of Alaska. And I mean, he's like, but why change what has always worked for me? And I'm like, there's a lot of truth to that. So many guys get excited about new bows and they jump ship. And then, that Nitram 30, perfect example. I was shooting the bow I was shooting currently. I was shooting a Bear Charger, which was a budget mid-level bow. I was shooting that bow so good. And then the Nitram 30 comes out and I'm like, I need this bow. And it was garbage. I hated it. Couldn't shoot it worth anything. So just because the newest, shiniest bows come out doesn't mean you have to upgrade. There's some legitimacy in just shooting what works for you.
I think I would still be shooting the Bear Carnage today if I think my brother-in-law ended up taking it. But I love that bow. I killed a bunch of stuff with that bow. I would still be shooting it today.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that bow. And I actually loved it. What year was that? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Oh, man. No. I've been here. We're talking early 2000s. I think pre-2010, maybe 7, 8, somewhere in there.
I do remember, though, thinking to myself, that was kind of the tide changing for Bear with the Carnage.
Yes.
I remember saying, like, this is a turning point for Bear. They went through it, and every bow company has went through that just lull of the bows are decent. They're not really. And I remember the Carnage and thinking like, and I wasn't shooting Bear at the time. It didn't work for Bear. But I remember thinking like, this is a turning point for Bear. They are making legitimate bows. And
2011.
Yep. I do remember that now because I had just started working in a bow shop for the first time. But I remember thinking like, this is a turning point for Bear. And
that was a quality that was a flagship compound bow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At a time when they didn't necessarily have the best.
Right.
But that one was right there with the best.
Absolutely. So as people look at specs, new bows are coming out. A lot of times you get to see the bow, you get to hear the specs of it. And then it might be a few months before you ever get your hands on it. Yep. Walk me through like what a guy should look for in specs. I mean, if they see certain specs, what should make them get giddy about a bow, if you will?
So I would say two things first are going to be length and the weight. I think those are two things that guide a lot of hunters right from the get-go. Is if you're concerned about weight, then you don't want to shoot one that's, 5 pounds plus. You're going to gravitate towards one that's lighter. And then also, I think even more so is that length. I think there are people who want short, light, maneuverable, and people who want longer, stable. Generally, I put them into two categories: Eastern hunters versus Western hunters. I think your Western hunters are going to more prefer the longer axle to axle. Eastern hunters are going to more prefer the shorter. That's at least what we see in our shop. Just for how you use them, not so much for the performance, but that fits, the Eastern hunter going through thick brush to get up in your tree stand or your ground blind. Western hunter probably going to have to shoot a little longer, want something that is capable, that's more conducive to distance shooting. So I think those two off the bat, length and weight, are probably going to be what you look at first. If you're a Eastern tree stand hunter and you see, the Bear Persist 33. 33 is not a bad, but let's say Bear came out with a 34 inch. You might be like, nah, that's not for me. I prefer 28, 29, 30 inches. Versus the Western guy who may see, so-and-so came out with a 28 inch axle to axle bow. You're going to be like, nah, no thanks.
So I'm going to make all the short axle to axle guys mad here. I'm not long or short. I really like 32 is probably my favorite axle to axle. However, my argument for all the short axle to axle guys, and I don't know where you land on this. However, my argument is, does 3 inches really make a difference when you're getting into your tree stand? I mean, you're talking.
Nope.
And so many guys are like, well, I need it to be maneuverable. I need to get it through there.
Yes.
And I'm like, we're talking 3 inches. Like that's not a big, long, but now I can imagine, 38 inch axle to axle. Yeah. You don't want to be trying to get that through brush and stuff, but I'm like, we're talking 3. I've never one time set in a ground blind or a tree stand where I'm like, God, if this bow was 2 inches shorter, it would work better.
This argument though is not about logic, it's about perception.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that. And to your point, we're going back to personal preference here. Some guys just shoot a short axle to axle bow better. Now let's throw draw length into that.
Yeah.
Let's throw draw length into that equation, because if you've got a 32 inch draw, you don't want a 29 inch axle to axle bow. However,
correct.
I don't know if you remember, what's the bow called? It was a short little bow from Bear a couple years ago. Good Lord.
To that end about draw length, if you're at like 32, 33 inches, you're really limited in what you can choose.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Quite frankly, you're just looking for a bow that has that draw length.
Right. I don't know why I can't think of this bow
a
name.
Super short one.
But I had a buddy who's a 30 inch draw and he wanted that bow. And I'm like, no, you don't. You do not want that bow. I started with a D. Anyways, and he loved that. The Divergent EKO.
Okay.
That's what it was called. And
Gotcha.
he loved that bow. And I'm like, that doesn't make any, I mean, this dude's like 6'5", a massive behemoth of a man, and he's shooting a bow that looks like a little. I mean, I have a picture of him. It looks comical when he's shooting it, but he shot that bow so well. And again, there's some truth to just pick up every single bow and see what's going to shoot the best for you. Now, I will warn you though, that I think is where a lot of guys get into some issues where they don't consider string angle when they're going to have a peep sight in there. So all they're doing is feeling the bow, and they're not considering how steep the string angle is when shooting it. You know what I mean? And then, so it feels really good in the shop. Then they get it out and it's like, man, this bow doesn't hold on target for me. There's an incredibly strong string angle, and it's just not what I thought it was going to be just shooting it in the shop. I think people get into trouble that way too, though.
So I was typically, for many years, I was a longer axle to axle bow guy. It's got to be, 33, 34 inches. It's got to be that. One of my buddies was like, man, why do you always go with those longer bows? They're heavy, you got to try the short ones. And I would always discount the shorter ones. So last year, 29 and a half and a 30-inch bow. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I shot those things. We have a intercompany competition that we do on video. It's called our Steel Target Challenge. I'm the old guy by like 25 years older than everybody else. I came in second place with a 30-inch bow. I finally missed at 110 yards, but I hit the 4-inch circle at 60, 80 yards. 60, 65, 80 yards. And then I hit the bigger opening at 100 yards with a 30-inch bow at 30-inch draw.
Yeah.
So you don't know. That bow I just shot lights out.
Well, and to your point, you've already said that you like the Whitetail INT over the Persist. It's 2 inches shorter.
Yeah.
You chose a shorter inch axle to axle just because that was what shot better for you.
It just shoots nicer. Yeah. You just don't know until you do it.
Now, where does length and weight collide? Like, at what point do you look at a bow and you say, I like the axle to axle length, but it's too heavy or it's too light? I mean, there are bows that are just too light and they want to jump out of your hands when you shoot them. So where does that kind of sweet spot fall between short axle to axles being light enough or heavy, longer axle to axles being too heavy or too light?
So I'm going to go. One of the other things that I did in the last year was I lightened. I used to weigh the bows down, big 15-inch front stabilizer, 8-inch side rod, put weights on there. Again, my same friend was like, why are you doing that, man? You're hunting whitetails. You don't need all that. So I said, okay, I'll switch. And so I went short and I went super light. And I was able to shoot as well as I ever have with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's personal preference and it's playing. Obviously I'm in a position where I can play with all this stuff. And so I am able to figure out what I need to make something work. But you don't know if you don't try it. People always talk about, they come in and they buy like the little 4-inch stubby stabilizer that's just made of the rubber stuff. Navcom, I think it's called. And we're like, hey, you could probably hold a little steadier if you got like an 8-inch, a 10-inch. Nah, I don't mess with that. That's where you don't know if you don't try, I think. I would have discounted those short bows, but I tried them and found, hey, I can shoot just as good. I'd rather carry around 4 pounds in the woods than 6 for sure, even if it's just my tree stand.
Absolutely. And that's
just
something
nicer.
I used to like heavy bows too. I used to weigh them mugs down. Then you start running around in Elk Mountain for, 50 miles in a week. And you're like, man, if this was 2 pounds lighter, that'd be a whole lot nicer. But I will say,
even just carrying it through the woods, just carrying the bow through the woods. a 30-inch bow versus a 34-inch bow, you hit a lot less stuff banging on rock, trees and stuff. You hit a lot less stuff with that shorter bow.
Yeah.
I can't deny that.
Right. And that's something that different bows for me, and like you said, try different things, experiment. Different bows like different weights. I used to weigh them down for no reason. If a bow balances well, there's no point in adding weight to it. If a bow balances really well with one 8-inch stabilizer on the front, then I don't need to go to a 12 and an 8 on the back. The bow's already balanced well. Why am I adding weight for no reason? So try different bows. And that's why I encourage people, if you're looking at accessories, get something like a Trophy Ridge, Hitman kit. That way it comes with a 10 and an 8, a front and a back. You can try the 10 on the front, the 8 on the front, the 10 on the front, the 8 on the back. You can try all those different things. You can swap weights around. You can see what you're really going to like. And I understand too. It's like, well, that's another $250 in stabilizers. But you can keep those for bows moving forward for years. And then you have those
got
to
one
play
set,
with.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now, what is if you see a bow come out, like what is the specs? If you see them, you're like, I need to shoot that bow.
For me, I'm going to say that I want it to be in that. No, I can't say that anymore because I just shot these. Probably one of the ones I'm going to look at is brace height. Once you get 6 is about my minimum, and I'd prefer 6 1/4. But if it's 6 or even less, there've been a couple bows. If it starts with a 5, man, that's got me nervous. But I would say brace height is one that I'm going to look at first. I don't care about speed. And to me, the shorter the brace height, the only thing I care about is accuracy. And from what I've noticed, the shorter the brace height, the less consistently accurate I seem to be. So if I see 6, I'm going to be like, okay, that's it. If I see 6 1/4, oh, okay. Yeah, that's nice. But if I see 5 something,
Why have brace heights gotten generally shorter just to achieve more speed?
Speed.
Yeah.
And, we see them. There are people that's all they care about, speed. They want to be the fastest. I personally don't care about speed at all.
You ever miss those like 7-inch brace height bows that we used to have?
I still shoot those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In the target world, 7, 7.5, 8. That's what we're talking about for target bows. So yeah, that's all just about speed.
Yeah. And that was honestly about the same time, it's almost like that Carnage, that same era, that 2010, everything started to change to be how fast can we get this bow to shoot? And that's when you started having 360s show up and bows were blowing up everywhere, and it just was a mess. But that was almost the same time frame where it was like, let's get these bows as fast as humanly possible. And then you're just looking back and you're thinking, what about shootability? Like, what about enjoying the shot? And
exactly.
I want to check the brace height on this bow before I mention it, but there was a bow in that time where everybody was chasing speed. It was about that same 2012 era. I don't know if you remember the bow. Let's see here. Brace height, 7 inches. Yeah. The Elite Energy 32.
Sure.
I remember that bow because it was in everybody was chasing speed era, and people were, shooting really short brace heights. And then you have the Elite Energy come out, and it was only shooting 330 feet per second, but the bow is such a joy to shoot. I mean, just you could shoot that bow all day long and just have fun with it. Shot super accurate. I loved that bow to death. And it was a 7-inch brace height, and everybody else at that time was like, we're going to crank it down to 6, 5 3/4, get it as short as we can, fast as we can. But for me, it doesn't matter how fast the arrow is going if you can't shoot it accurately.
So, and to your point about just enjoyable shooting, I don't know about you, but I spend a whole lot more time shooting in my backyard than I do at something, at a deer or something. So if
100%.
I'm just going out, I'm just like, this one day I'm like, I just want to go out and kill some time, shoot my bow. So there, I for sure don't care how fast the arrow's going. I just want it to be comfortable and an enjoyable experience. Kill some time.
Absolutely. And I actually added it up. The 2 months leading up to my elk hunt, I averaged 65 arrows a day.
Nice.
Some was, 10, some was 200. I mean,
Sure.
you got a Saturday of watching football out in the shop, you'll shoot 200 arrows just standing there shooting while you're watching football. And I averaged that out 65 shots a day for 2 months. And then when you're on the mountain, you take one shot. Like
you're hoping for one
shot. And so all of that leads up to, and if you can't spend enough time practicing with a bow, maybe the draw link's too heavy, the draw cycle's too harsh for whatever reason, you just can't spend a lot of time practicing with that bow, then it really doesn't matter. So
you better have your form perfected if you've got a 5.5 inch brace height.
100%.
You twitch and that thing's going left or right. And so is that the one? Is that the bow you want to have out there? When you're cold, you've gone 4 days, you haven't taken a shot. Day 5, here comes the 360 incher. You want to put that on that 5.5 inch brace height?
Well, and it's not only that, and maybe that's a bow that we're talking about. In the shop, it feels fantastic. But then you get home and you can't shoot it worth nothing. Well, look at the brace height and consider that. When you're shooting a bow in the shop, look at the brace height and consider that and say, it feels great, but it's still a 5.5 inch brace height. Like that's going to exaggerate every flaw I've got. Now, I've also been asked the question. So ideally, technically speaking, the shorter the brace height, the arrow is on the string longer. So that means you have more time to exaggerate your flaw.
Right.
And so the speed at that point, like we're talking about, really doesn't mean anything. I mean, I don't care how fast the arrow gets there. If I miss by 4 inches, doesn't matter.
Right.
So those are all things to consider. And buying a new bow is such a fun time. But I would encourage you to not just rush into buying a new bow. Spend time with them. And there's been bows that I shot one day and loved, come back in a week and I hate it. I don't know why. It's just, don't just rush into spending $1,200 on a bow because it felt great in the shop. Watch videos on it. Watch reviews on it. Study the specs on it. Study, what are the benefits and downfalls of a longer axle versus short axle. What are the benefits and downfalls of a short brace height versus a long brace height? And then compare those things to the specs of the bow that you're considering. But don't just go and shoot it 3 times and say, that one feels good, I'm going to take that one. Because you might get it home and absolutely hate it.
Yes. Unfortunately, we see that a lot.
Yeah. And it happens. So what are you most looking forward to seeing from new bows this year? And it doesn't just have to be one particular bow. Maybe it's a new technology, but what are you hoping to see this year come out?
So what we're seeing more and more are things that make bows more user friendly, to where you own the bow and that you can work on it yourself. Tuning features. How long ago was it where if you got a left tear through paper, you had to take it to your shop and have them mess with it? Because, even if you had a bow press, there were 9,000 paper thin washers in between the cam and the limb, and you pulled them out and they went everywhere. So what the trend that I'm seeing is things making bows easier for you to tune yourself, to just make things happen. Get this, adjustability to get them to shoot the way you want them to, whether it's adjusting let off, holding weight, things like that. That seems to be what we're seeing in advancements.
Yeah,
that
which is
that
exciting.
I think are interesting.
Because we're also in an era where guys want to work on their own equipment more, which is great because I've always said, if you'll work on your equipment, you'll know your equipment better.
For sure.
And that's just something that, because again, you're going to be figuring out what your bow likes, what it doesn't like when you do those things yourself. And you're going to be setting up your bow for you. It's one of my pet peeves, and I don't know if you guys do this or not, but it's one of my pet peeves when I go and pick up a bow and they say, we tuned it for you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Like,
yes,
you might've tuned it for you. You didn't tune it for me because I didn't shoot the bow. So when you work on your own equipment, you know your equipment better. But it's also set up for you by you. And it's just, then if something happens in the field, you're more apt to be able to figure out what's happening because you set up the bow. So we're in that era of people liking to work on their own bows. And that's why we've had such incredible feedback on the series that you and I did on working on your own bow at home, building your own bow. And that's something I still go back and reference that. Whenever I'm setting up a bow, I go back and reference that series and say, okay, what did PJ say? I need to add cables. Okay, if the bottom's hitting first, I add twists to that cable. And I loved that series because we're in that era. And you're right. I do love the technology that's coming out that helps you be able to do that. We're no longer.
There was a video we did the other day where the bow came in and I was supposed to be 70 pounds and it was at 67. And so it might have been the Bear Persist even. I think it was. The Persist came in. It was. Out of the box, it was 67 pounds. And so we shot it for our speed test. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. It's supposed the spec is for 70. So I went in, put it in the press, twisted the cables. We got it to 71 and somebody commented, they were like, hey, great review, but I'm most excited to learn that you can twist the cables to increase the poundage.
Yeah.
He didn't know you could do that.
So maybe we shouldn't talk about this because we don't want to encourage people to do anything stupid. I got the question, if they have a 70-pound bow, but they really want to get 75 out of it, can they twist their cables? What would you tell that guy?
To 75, I would say no, because and the difference being from 67 to 70, that's 3 pounds, but I was going to the spec.
You're going to be taking that bow out of spec.
Is the spec, you're going above the spec. And just from what I know about twisting cables, to twist it to get to 75, you're going to have to put a lot of twists in. And so then you're definitely lengthening your draw length.
Right.
So, I mean, if you have a rotating mod, you could always go down, but you're really torquing things out of spec. 5 pounds above spec. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And that's what I told the guy.
2 pounds. Okay. But 5, that's a lot.
You also then have to ask yourself why. Like, why are you wanting to? Why are you wanting to decrease the performance of your bow, if you will, by taking it out of spec just to gain 2 pounds? I mean, you're going to get 6 more feet per second, maybe, depending on arrow weight, maybe 6 feet per second faster. Just what's the point?
One of the engineers from one of the bow companies I talked to one time said the specs are what they are because that's where they want you to shoot the bow. That's where it's going to get your best performance. Once you start going out of those specs in any instance, now you're affecting the performance to something outside their parameters.
Yeah, absolutely. So good answer. That's what I told the guy. But I just wanted to clarify that up. I mean, I'm sure if he had that question, maybe other people do too. So PJ, man, thank you so much for coming on, guys. I don't need PJ to plug it because you guys know, if you've been around archery, you know Lancaster's a name you can trust. So as you shop for new bows this year, Lancaster's got all your bows. They've got all your accessories, all your sights, rests, stabilizers, targets, anything archery that you've ever dreamed of owning. You can get it at Lancaster.com. But also my favorite thing about Lancaster, just a plug, is that they not only sell me the stuff, but they teach me about the stuff. So if I've ever had a question on a sight or a rest or want to see a review of something, I go to PJ Reilly and Lancaster's YouTube and watch those things. So guys, go check out Lancaster Archery. Follow them on all the social media platforms. And again, as you see all these new things coming out, you know where to get it, Lancaster Archery. Guys, I oftentimes say that I always have a binocular harness on my chest. What good is a binocular harness without a good set of binoculars? I am a sucker for fine Japanese glass. I love good optics. I love spending time behind it. It's just fun. It's fun to go out and look at stuff, but also good optics make spotting and looking through them a whole lot more enjoyable. Kowa Optics does it and does it better than anyone else, in my opinion. They have some of the finest Japanese glass on planet Earth. It's all I've used for the past, 8 years or so. This right here, the Kowa 55, is one of the best products ever made in the history of the universe. It is the smallest, most compact scope you can get, but it still offers phenomenal glass. It's really hard to find a spotter that is this small, this light, this compact. You can throw it in your backpack. You can leave it in your truck. It's so small and so compact, but it still offers phenomenal glass. This is one of my favorite products ever. Guys, if you're in the market for new optics, I would highly encourage you to check out Kowa Optics because they are, in my opinion, the best glass that you can buy. Go check them out. Thank you guys for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.